Good afternoon, everyone. Feels so good to be here and be back in San Diego. So today I want to share with you a little bit my experience doing a PhD with Charles and Charles' impact for 30 years in ECE. So I'm going to show you two photos, me in a suit. I'm going to show you a bit of my experience, how I did a PhD with Charles. So in general for PhDs, before PhD, it looks like this. After PhD, you know what you got, right? For Charles Tu's lab, it's slightly different. It's actually quite opposite. So I don't understand why the Bell Labs people always wear ties when they take photos. Actually, in Charles' lab, we didn't. And then actually, it's quite opposite. When you graduate, things become a lot more better. So this is my a little bit journey after I graduated in 2014 from Charles' lab. And then I started a tech transfer program in Von Liebig Center, a little bit of the technology we developed back in the lab. And then I found out a nanowire technology startup next door, so I joined forces and did semiconductor R&D research. One thing that Charles always encouraged me to do is like look outside, explore, and then also read a lot. But sometimes you have to be careful when you are young and want to be cool, and when you read a lot, it's actually dangerous. So I've read about this. So there's another way to become sexy. So I became a data scientist in the Bay Area. So also not too long ago, I continued to be sexy. So I joined LinkedIn as also data science. So I don't know what my next venture is going to be, but I look forward to it. As Charles always encourages the students, like go beyond your scope, expand your horizon, and I keep doing that. I follow that philosophy. So at this point, I can talk about all the impacts that Charles has made, how awesome he is, right? But I feel like without data, I just become another person with an opinion, although this opinion is very strong. So I'm going to show you something about the ECE department. So as an educator, Charles has 3 decades of dedication and passion coaching in this department. And then if you look at for the past 3 decades, how many degrees we confer to students. Well, I understand that not everybody has LinkedIn profile, but with this little not too big of a data, we can tell a story. For the first decade, we have about 600 degrees. In the second decade, almost 150, 1,500. And then we're not closing 2018 yet, so I think we're going to get to 2,800. And if you are working in the semiconductor, you know Moore's law. What does Moore's law say? And look at this. We can probably call it Tu's law. We double our degree every decade. And remember all the diversity program that Charles and other faculties brought into UCSD community, and they look at the male to female ratio. Actually, we're getting more and more balance. That's a good thing. And in every class, particularly when I was a TA for Charles, he always keeps on telling story about how awesome it can be when you become an engineer, work in the STEM field. And how does that story work? I believe he has been telling that story for 30 years, right? So in the first decade, we have 33% of people with an ECE degree starting from 1989 after Charles joined the department, working in engineering, 15% in information technology, and a fair share of others, operations, sales, top 8 company. I don't even recognize this. Some of you may. And then for the next decade, we still have a strong share of engineering talents in information technology. You may say a refresh list of the top 8 companies, but IBM, HP, Qualcomm, and well, Intel still make top 8, right? Moving on to the recent decade, we have still a fair share, very constant share of engineering and information talent working in the field. Top 8, refresh a little bit, Intel, Qualcomm, IBM made to the top 3. Google started showing up on top 8 as well. So when I look at this trend, I feel like IBM, HP, Qualcomm, and Intel, they should probably send a representative to this symposium to congratulate Professor Tu for training so many talents for their companies. As Charles, as a leader, he always set a very good example, training students like open your voice, express your ideas, taking up the community, hosting organizations and activities. So how does our ECE Trident do overall as a leader position? So for the first decade, we've seen fair share of senior positions. Second decade, as our Trident mature, more and more leaders. And now we're getting more VP and CXOs, and some of you are actually sitting among us. Thank you for the contribution. So at this point, I feel like 30 years is a long time. It means differently for different people. For a data scientist, it's a snap of pulling data. For Professor Tu, it can be 3 decades of passion, consistent dedication to coaching, teaching, all the community service. And for students, what does 30 years mean to me? Actually, I don't know. Only it won't become clear until we look back, connecting all the dots. Dots started here, dots cross path with Charles, and dots probably endorsed by him as well. So I feel like I don't know what my next venture is going to be, but I want to say, whatever we do, we are forever grateful. Happy retirement, Charles.
Thank you, Yanjin. I'd like to have the copy of that presentation so that we can reach out to academic partnership of those companies asking for donation to the core. See, I'm on the job. So next, Patrick Chin.